Tonight on CTV News, there's a call for more resources for Christchurch's Pacifica people. Mayor in the chair just one last time, and is the proposed convention centre nothing more than a time waster?
Broadcasting across Canterbury, from the CTV studio, this is First at 5.
Good evening. Does the city need to create a hub for Pacifica people? Well, that's exactly what one group wants, and today they made it quite clear to the Christchurch City Council. Here's Marcus Gibbs.
A classroom of little mayors. During today's Christchurch City Council Mayor in the Chair session, Elmwood School took the centre seat to address the councillors on a 10-year vision of a city filled with flying cars, apples made of candy and buildings made from chocolate. Other honorary mayors also had a chance to say something too, including 19-year-old Josiah with an important message.
Māori and Pacific have never really had a clear space in the visible framework or in any of the parts of our city.
It's a serious issue that Josiah wants to see addressed. Pacifica people have had a presence in New Zealand since the 1940s, but the local community feels undervalued by the council and wants extra support.
Our community want a Pacific village, or at least a Pacific space somewhere in Christchurch where they can feel like it is permanent, it is visible, that our people can meet, teach and share culture and art with others and our community.
It could be a building, a community centre, a place for Pacifica to call their own. Josiah says the Pacific community would rally behind the cause and help fundraise to build the centre if it got the tick of approval from the council.
It would be great to see CCC challenge this in the many different ways this can go ahead, and then Christchurch be looked at as a model for the rest of the country to support and engage with Pacific communities. City
Councillor Glenn Livingston is supporting the teenagers' call for further interaction between the council and the city's Pacifica population.
He highlighted the fact that there just hasn't been that profile and that there needs to be, and I think we need to up it.
Josiah wants to see the council working directly with Pacifica people, sooner rather than later.
The council should have a representative on the Christchurch Pacifica network. That's our key body where we have all the different interagency groups that work from government level and also the NGOs in our community work together to identify issues for our community and work to support them.
I'm sure we can set up a direct contact. I think they want some kind of council appointee or liaison with that.
Following the meeting, Josiah told CTV News the Pacifica community are mostly based in the east and they would love to see New Brighton revitalised. The idea for the Pacifica Village is one he's really passionate about.
Now, whether this was an actual physical residential space or something with like a collection of social services which are all together to support our community, this would be a place where Pacific people could say, this is our part of Christchurch, this is where we belong.
One option could be to turn part of the residential red zone into a special place for the community.
One things we talk about is a community park in the red zone where there could be vegetable plantings or a Pacific-style garden.
He says there have been previous discussions about setting up a Pacifica village and he believes it would be beneficial to his community. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
Well, thanks to the colder weather, it's going away finally. The algae bloom outbreak across Canterbury's waterways finally is subsiding, which is good news for animals.
They're now safe to use. That's the message from the Canterbury District Health Board following further tests of algae bloom in 2 of the region's lakes. Health warnings were issued back in February, with large amounts of potential toxic algae found in both Pegasus and Forsyth lakes, with Environment Canterbury testing the waters on a weekly basis. Both humans and animals were at risk over the 2-month period, being told to avoid contact with the water until the warning had been lifted. Canterbury Medical Officer of Health Dr Alistair Humphrey says exposure to the algae may cause nausea, stomach cramps and numbness around the mouth and fingertips, and even boiling the water from the lake doesn't get rid of the toxin. He says with the health warning lifted and the algae decreased to a safer level, it's unlikely the algae will be back as we continue into the winter months, with more chance of the toxin to be visible in the warmer weather later in the year. The algae was naturally forming and was prolific around a number of waterways across Canterbury from September last year. The lakes will continue to be monitored monthly by Environment Canterbury.
And if you're watching this broadcast at 5 o'clock, we are getting reports of a very serious crash on Gardeners Road. The council says it's likely the road will be closed between Sawyers Arms Road and Claridge's Road for some time. An eyewitness has just got in touch with us here at CTV News, said a car and a truck have collided. Well, still to come here on CTV News, is it a dangerous project? Barnaby Bennett joins me next on the program. When you need to know what's happening in your region of Canterbury, join me, Chris Lynch, for CTV News First at 5, weeknights from 5, right here on your local channel, CTV.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
Made to measure interiors, made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishing as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishing, Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
Welcome back to CTV News. He described it as the most dangerous project for the city so far. A new Christchurch Convention Centre. Yes, it's very contentious. It'll cost nearly $300 million. That cost is expected to soar. But nobody knows it will bring the benefits to the city. We do know that actually, because the information, the international research does suggest convention centres are loss-making ventures. So why would you bother? Rebuild commentator Barnaby Bennett is with us, and good evening to you, Barnaby, beg your pardon. Tell us about this convention centre. You've written a rather interesting report on this, and I want to bring you up in the first paragraph. I've talked to former mayors, people inside Sarah, inside council, community leaders, local business owners, inner city residents, many more, and almost nobody supports either the location or the scale of this project. Then why the hell are we building it then?
It's a good question, and I think the fact that no one supports it doesn't mean it's the wrong project. I think the really bad thing is the poor communication about the project. I've criticised it quite a lot in that document, and I've tried to be as sort of thorough and open and imaginative with it as possible, but really it should be on the Crown's part to make the case to say this is a really good project for the city, and this is what's inside the project, and this is why it's going to make good money, and this is why it's a good investment.
But they haven't. Every time we've asked for the actual business case to say why this monstrosity is going to be great for the city, all we get is a heavily redacted report, which in my view is poor considering the amount of money, public money, that's going to be spent on this. Exactly. Of course, Jerry Brownlee would argue of commercial imperatives are at play here, commercial sensitivity. They don't want to say too much and give too much away. If you reveal your hand, so to speak, then it may become either too cheap or too expensive, vice versa, depending on who wants to build this thing.
It's become like the TPPA negotiations, where they're having to keep everything secret, which actually puts the public offside, which puts the investors offside, which makes us all really worried about the project. Except unlike the TPPA, they've committed to it already, so they've put themselves in this terrible negotiating position.
Do you think it's a done deal though? Because we're still in the negotiation stage, aren't we? I mean, the council is pretending it's a done deal. The government too is when it comes to the anchor projects, but at the very end clause of the blueprint, it says they can renegotiate whatever they like. This entire project's open to interpretation. It is flexible, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think anything's a done deal, and that's why I wrote this, is to try and get a bit of conversation. And I think what would be best is if they came out and started telling us some of the financial figures, even if they're ballpark. And if they also came out and started, there was a bit of a defence today I see about our criticism of them being big, empty open spaces, and that there will be different facilities. What are the facilities? Tell us what the shop, what sort of shops, what's the grain going to be, how many things are going to be there, what community facilities is going to be.
You have major concerns that this is going to take up far too much space in central Christchurch, and it's the wrong location. Why?
Conventionally, convention centres aren't good inside central cities. They usually go on the outskirts of central cities because they're big, objects that are largely empty most of the time, and they don't give the sort of density of activity that central cities need, where you want lots of shops, lots of little events, lots of things like bars, cafes, hairdressers, people living there.
We're looking at some shots now, though. My understanding is the government would argue that this is more of a precinct now. They realise that they can't create this thing without the public having use of it. Do you buy that? Do you think that will be the case? At the moment, I can't see bars, restaurants or public
Yeah, and you look at it,
amenities.
it's big empty space which is designed for big crowds of people to come through a couple of times a day or something. It doesn't have the grain that the Christchurch used to have, that people are used to, and it doesn't have what a really functioning city needs. And they keep saying precinct, which sure is fine, but tell us what's going to be in the precinct then.
Well, and the thing is, they won't, though.
No.
Do you know what it reminds me of? I look at these images that we're seeing on the screen right now. It reminds me of Brasilia. You know what I mean? It's concrete.
Yeah.
It's not functional.
Yeah.
It's a concrete jungle. It's bloody boring. Where's the vision in that? Even if it was the right location, from an architect's point of view, you think it's boring? Somebody retweeted somebody saying it looks like a squashed sandwich. It does, doesn't it?
I guess from an architect's point of view, yeah, I'm more concerned about it giving life to the city than what it looks like. I think an ugly building, if it's full of life and activity, people will grow to love it. And I think this building could be the prettiest building in the world, and it wouldn't, if it's not doing that, it won't do that to the city. So
how will it give life to the city? How can we make sure this thing gives life to the city then?
I think one of the main things they could do is come out and say, these are the areas that we're going to have public activities, and what do you want there? I think it's amazing that they'll be doing a $500 million project and haven't come back to the city not once in 3 years and said, what are the sort of things you guys envisioned in your city? What are the sort of shops you want? What are the sort of events you want to be able to hold? Apparently the project designers in this have talked to the council once about this project. So even our own council representatives and planners don't really know what's going on with this.
I was going to ask you, I was going to pick you up on that because you've written here that, one sort of engagement meeting, if that. So really, they're doing what they want regardless of the people. Do you believe for a second the so-called share an idea, this convention centre is based on that share an idea thing? I can't imagine any Christchurch people saying, I want a massive squash sandwich right in the middle of the city. Apart from the taxi drivers and the occasional person that phones me up on talkback saying it's going to be great for the economic stimulus, despite the fact no research to back it up.
But we can have both. We can have economic stimulus and a well-designed building in the right place. We can have all that. We just need to be really careful and slow and considered. It's always been played off as a trade-off at the moment. Like you lose democracy if you get good business. It's a false choice.
Well, it is. And I want to pick you up on the international research, and I've read many articles that suggest at the end of the day, convention centres across the world are loss-making ventures. So why on earth are we going down this road then? Because we've got Skype. People aren't wanting to travel to. Why would somebody want to come to Christchurch? You've got the one in Auckland that's supposedly being built. You've got one in Queenstown. We're all competing for this very small market that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So why are the politicians so obsessed with what I would call vanity projects?
I don't know, and I wouldn't object to the project if they put up a solid case and said, we're confident it's going to work, it's going to bring in X number of hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And stadiums run at a loss as well. Lots of things run at a loss. In itself, that's not wrong. What's wrong is they won't tell us what that loss is until construction starts this year, and we don't know who's going to be paying for that loss. They might turn around in 2 years and go to the council and go, you need to pay $50 million a year.
That's right. Leanne Dalzell nor Jerry Brownlee will tell me who will pay for the ongoing operational expenses for this thing.
That's outrageous, really.
It is outrageous. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming into us here at CTV News. Stay with us. Your weather guide is just moments away. Hi, I'm Chris Lynch. Join me every Monday at 8:30 on CTV as we discuss the issues affecting you, your family and everything to do with Canterbury. That's CTV 8:30 right here.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
Country made to measure interiors. Made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishing as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishing, Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
And welcome back to CTV News. Today was the final round of Mayor in a Chair. Over the last month, Leanne Dalzell's seat has been kept warm, even though she's been away in China, of course. But members of the public have been able to sit in there and have their say. Our reporter Marcus Gibbs looks back at the several sessions which had the most impact on council.
Canterbury, that's it, you've had your shot. Now it's time to welcome back Mayor Leanne Dalzell. But while she was away in China, several people have had quite the impact on the council chambers as honorary mayors of the moment. A call for action last week to highlight a growing problem saw Reverend Mike Coleman pleading for insurance-troubled residents to get in touch.
I really want to know how many are still battling.
Speaking to councillors, the Canterbury Insurance Advisory Service made sure it was heard. The Christchurch City Council set up the charitable organisation 2 years ago to help the most vulnerable residents still battling insurance claims. But Mike wants anyone still fighting their insurers to get in touch.
I want the numbers to come in and get it out there, tell them that we're here.
So far, the team have helped 180 desperate people with their insurance needs, but these advocates know the problem is far greater.
If we suddenly have a 1,500 on the books that we can't deal with, that's the issue of the city, not the issue of us.
Councillors told CTV News their hands were tied.
In a perfect world, of course, it would be wonderful to fund them more, but there are a lot of pressures.
During the fourth round of Mayor in the Chair, an emotional mother begged the councillors to consider her daughter as they plan for the next 10 years of Christchurch's development.
When you're building, when you're planning for the city, I want you to see her. I want you to think of her.
17-year-old Ella is confined to a wheelchair and she's living in a city that stops her reaching her full potential. The councillors won't be forgetting Ella anytime soon. Councillor Glenn Livingston says accessibility is a core issue for the council.
Can we look at the city through the lens of accessibility? So that's important for us to hear, for the independent hearings panel to hear over our district plan.
Finally, local NGOs are upset the city councillors have ignored the nearly 1,000 groups in Christchurch that fall under their umbrella. They took the Mayor's chair to address council plans to potentially cut their funding.
The pain of the cuts that everybody was asked to share equally was not being shared with some other entities, so there was a real inequity between how the not-for-profit sector was being treated and other entities that were being funded by the City Council, and that smacked to me of disrespect of a lack of value for the sector.
Councillors were shocked to hear how bad the city's NGOs are struggling and want to help.
Members of the council that were here today have heard loud and clear the importance of that community grant funding, not only the fact that it exists and that it shouldn't be cut, but also the fact that there needs to be certainty around when it's made available.
Due to their popularity, it won't be long before the Mayor and the Chair sessions are back again. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
As New Zealand gets ready to commemorate 100 years since the Gallipoli landings, CTV News decided to quiz Cantabrians about what Anzac Day means to them.
Every New Zealander has been affected by war in one way or another. Anzac Day is a national day of remembrance to commemorate all Australians and New Zealanders who served and died in all wars, conflicts and peacekeeping operations. This includes honouring the members of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps who fought at Gallipoli against the Ottoman Empire during World War I. As the country prepares to commemorate 100 years of the Gallipoli landings, what does this anniversary mean for New Zealanders?
I do think of all the soldiers that lost their lives for us and all the families that were affected. Just remembering those that gave up their lives and sacrificed themselves for us to have the way of life we have now.
It's about remembrance. It's about appreciating the efforts that were put into us by our forebears.
Celebrating the deaths of our soldiers that fought bravely in the war.
Sacrifice for the lives that were lost and the people whose lives were changed so drastically.
I don't go to any services, but I do sit at home and sort of reflect on what they did.
Well, a lot of lives were lost and a lot of families disrupted.
It's a time to remember
what happened to all those people that gave up their lives to make it easier for us.
100 years on, what personal connection do Canterburyans have with the Anzacs?
My father was in the army.
Great-grandfather was in the war.
My great-grandfather and my brother's actually in the army now.
My father went away and ran the war and fought in the war, and it's for the job they done.
We had relations that went to the Second World War, and some of them come back and some didn't.
With a range of services and parades being held all over Canterbury this Anzac Day, it will be a time for many Cantabrians to reflect. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
And CTV News and the Lynched program will bring you more on Anzac Day commemorations over the next week or so. Well, does obesity start in the womb? It might sound like a far-fetched idea, but one Canterbury University researcher thinks there might be a link. Here's Jared McCulloch.
We hear about obesity more and more these days, a growing problem every year, and one Canterbury researcher has been exploring the issue, but right from the start. New Zealand is one of the largest countries in the world when it comes to people and weight, with almost 1 in 3 adults aged 15 and over being noted as obese, as well as 1 in 9 children aged between 2 and 14. But she's looked even further back, looking at pregnant women and high birth weight.
I looked at the relationship with socioeconomic status, obesity and iron supplements taken during pregnancy.
Rachel Webb has just graduated from the University of Canterbury, and over the last 3 years she's been busy exploring high birth weights here in New Zealand. However, when it comes to newborn babies and obesity, she says there's no real clear answer, and it's a complicated issue.
Being obese does greatly increase the risk of high birth weight, but it could well be driven by underlying factors that we can't account for, most likely sort of a genetic predisposition. So in fact, a woman who is obese may not lower her risk of high birth weight if she lost weight before becoming pregnant.
She says it's a topic that hasn't been well publicised because many researchers around the world haven't focused this far back. More on the cause of current problems in grown people.
There are a few papers in the literature that have looked at the birth weight of children and their later life health outcomes, in particular their obesity risk. Not many though, it's not a subject that has received a lot of attention.
There have been a number of studies around obesity and fast food restaurants, an issue that has been brought up many times before. However, she says it comes down to more awareness around fast food outlets, with people being better informed about choices they can make.
And I actually found it was not quite the relationship I would have expected, given conventional wisdom about fast food being bad for you and fattening. In fact, I actually found that for many of the restaurants I looked at, there didn't appear to be any relationship between more of these restaurants and increased obesity risk. And sometimes I even found a negative relationship where more fast food restaurants in the area actually decreased obesity risk.
She says she'd like to see more research done on her study, continuing to find out what causes obesity to increase.
I think it's just sort of a new problem. Obesity is something that's only the last few decades that has really been such a major health issue. So we do seem to be seeing more and more research being put into these topics. And high birth weight is, again, something that there just doesn't really seem to be that much general awareness of it as an issue. A lot of people are very aware that low birth weight is problematic, and so therefore think just a bigger baby will be better. But actually at the extreme end of large birth weight, it becomes a problem as well.
So there's a long way to go, but it could be one step forward to a solution to a growing problem. Jared McCulloch, CTV News.
And now it's time for the region's weather.
Good evening, Canterbury. Let's take a look at your weather. Timaru, you're on 16 today. Temuka and Geraldine slightly cooler on 15. Ashburton and Methven, you're both on 14 today. Rikaya, 14 for you also. Darfield, 14 degrees was your high today. Leicester and Rolleston, you were slightly warmer on 15 degrees. Lincoln and Christchurch, you both shared 15. Over in Akaroa today, you are on a high of 14 degrees. Further north, Kaiapoi, Rangiora and Amberley, 15 for you.
Maybe she thinks I know something. Maybe she thinks it's fine.
Today's high in Colvin, Hamner Springs and Cheviot was 15 degrees.
She knows something I don't.
And at the top of the region, Kaikoura, 14 degrees. Let's take a look at tomorrow's weather now. Timaru, there'll be some low cloud at first, but that will break to show some sunny periods during the afternoon and just some northeasterly winds. Your overnight low is 8, tomorrow's high 16 degrees.
Don't tell me, you might just let it go.
To Ashburn now, a cloudy Thursday morning is in store for you, but that sun will come through later on in the afternoon, bringing some fine spells and northeasterly winds. Your overnight low is 8, tomorrow's high 16. Christchurch, a bit of a dull and overcast day at first tomorrow, but the sunshine will be back for the afternoon with just some northeasterly winds as well. Tonight's low is 9, tomorrow's high 16 degrees.
I know that when she said she's gonna try, well, it might not.
And to go colder, low cloud at first with some long sunny periods developing during the afternoon, and also you'll have some northeasterly winds as well. Your overnight low tonight is 8, tomorrow's high is 16 degrees.
Maybe she'll help me.
Taking a look at the other areas around the region now, Temuka and Geraldine, there'll be some cloud at first and fine 18 degrees. Methven and Rikaya, you see some cloudy skies, then that fine weather will come through on 16. As for Darfield, Leeston, Rolleston and Lincoln, cloudy at first, then fine weather on 16.
You might just let it.
Akaroa, a very similar picture for you as well tomorrow, cloudy at first, then fine 16 degrees. Further north, Kaiapoi, Rangiora and Amberley, expect some cloud and then fine spells, 16.
To stand in my way, 'cause no one knows.
And Colvin, Hamner Springs and Cheviot, a very similar picture, cloudy for you, then fine, 17.
It seems to me that maybe.
Looking ahead for Canterbury now, will be fine on Friday with some sunny periods and high cloud and moderate northeasterly winds. Be cold by evening though, so wrap up warm. As for Anzac Day, it will be milder with some northerly winds freshening and high cloud increasing. To Sunday now, there'll be some thick high cloud at first with a few spits of rain spreading off the western ranges at times and fresh gusty northerly winds. And Monday, similar weather as well, some more sustainable periods of rain during the day, should be rather cold. Tuesday there'll be some rain at first, but that will turn to showers later on in the day, but there will be some strong cold southwesterly winds. But for now, that is your weather for Wednesday.
And that is CTV News. Have a great evening.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.